Et bonjour, bonsoir tout le monde, c'est Bukibarak. On se retrouve aujourd'hui sur The Stanley Parable pour le 4e épisode de notre petite aventure. On va démarrer tout de suite. Je laisse cette fois-ci à nouveau la cinématique d'intro puisqu'ils l'ont traduite, hein, elle est en français maintenant. Pour ceux qui n'ont donc rien compris à mes explications ou à la cinématique dans le premier épisode, vous allez tout comprendre maintenant. Allez, c'est parti.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Voilà. Donc, vous avez pu constater durant la cinématique que c'est beaucoup plus joli. En effet, j'ai réglé les petits problèmes qui faisaient que cela rendait tout moche. Bon, évidemment, ça a dû engendrer une baisse de la qualité de mon côté, mais ça devrait quand même globalement être beaucoup plus beau pour vous à regarder. Et pour moi, c'est un peu moins joli, mais c'est pas grave, on va s'en contenter. Hein. Donc, on est parti pour cette nouvelle aventure. Écoutez, cette fois-ci, on va... Tiens, il l'avait pas dit cette fois-ci. Bon, écoutez, on va faire un peu n'importe quoi cette fois-ci. Hein. On va essayer de... Oui, je sais pas encore. Moi, je vais revenir dans ma chambre. Allez, s'il vous plaît. Allez... Bon, je rigole, ça sert à rien. Il y a plein de portes partout qui sont toutes fermées, d'ailleurs. Hein. Je vais peut-être essayer de les ouvrir, mais je crois pas que ça va marcher. Peut-être celle-là, non. Donc on est parti, donc comme je vous l'ai dit. Oh. Comment j'ai fait ça? J'ai éteint l'ordinateur. Chez ce Stanley, il éteint les ordinateurs des gens. Ça va pas ou bien? Bref. Continuons notre périple. Donc, bon, ça on connaît déjà tout. Blablabla. Et on arrive ici. Hein.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Là, vous notez que la musique se coupe ici. Qu'est-ce qu'on va choisir? On va prendre la porte de gauche. Hein, écoutez. Non. On va vraiment essayer de tout ouvrir. S'il n'y a pas un mystère. Non.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Je regarde s'il y a peut-être des indices, vous voyez, quelque part. Hein. Ça m'étonnerait. D'ailleurs, ça projette où ce machin? Est-ce qu'on voit mon image? Ah non, quand même pas. Ils ont pas été aussi loin. Bon, il y a plein de bordel ici. Je cherche un peu des petites subtilités du jeu. Hein. Ça doit être, je pense, un de ces jeux où ils ont dû cacher des petites conneries. Il y avait ce truc là, voilà, qu'on pouvait ouvrir.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Alors, si on peut ouvrir ce truc, je pense qu'il doit y avoir un truc à faire ici.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow. Just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
La voie continue alors que je fais pas grand chose, il doit y avoir quelque chose. Peut-être que si je reste dans cette truc assez longtemps.
It was baffling that Stanley
Il doit
was
y
still
avoir quelque
just
chose.
sitting in the
Attends.
broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
On va continuer d'attendre. Toujours pas moyen de cliquer.
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
Ah, alors on arrive là, il y a peut-être un bouleversement de l'histoire. Attends encore.
You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it.
D'accord. J'attends.
Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friends you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favourite." I hope your friends find this concerning.
Le placard dans le palais, cette fin était ma préférée, le XD. Non, je suis pas dans ce genre-là.
Was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Ah bon, donc je suis accro aux drogues et aux putes. Bon.
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. In a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose.
Oh, peut-être je vais avoir un compagnon.
Anyone who happens to be nearby, the person at this computer is dead. He or she has fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place at the computer, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
D'accord, bon bah alors je reviens, je vais échanger de place avec quelqu'un. Non, je rigole. Bien, donc là je pense que... on va attendre encore 5 petites secondes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Non, je pense que là, les scripts sont finis. Alors on va sortir du couloir.
Ah, second player. It's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you.
Si je retourne dans le placard.
You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. Fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
Alors... Robert, on va attendre 10 petites secondes voir s'il se passe quelque chose. Tiens, je peux être en hauteur là. Putain, ils ont modélisé les fils et tout. 8, 9, 10... Bon écoutez, il n'y a rien qui se passe. Hop, on va. Ah, là il se passe plus rien. Alors, on va continuer. Peut-être que ça servait à rien. Hein.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Non, on va descendre cette fois-ci. On peut pas. Voilà, et on va rester là à l'infini. Bon, j'arrête les conneries. Alors, rien de très impressionnant.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. "I'm dreaming!" he yelled. "This is all a dream." Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life.
Dis donc, je suis...
Now hearing the voice speak these words
pas mal,
was a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Il a fumé. Ah, on se réveille exactement au même endroit.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
C'était limite flippant.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Quoi? Non.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Juste salope. Est-ce qu'on va jouer Mariala ou est-ce que c'est un game over? Bon, logiquement je suis mort, donc je pense que ouais, effectivement. Bon, c'était assez bizarre, hein. Je l'ai pas forcément apprécié celui-là, mais bon, il pouvait pas en faire que des bons à mon goût. Donc bon bah écoutez, on va se quitter pour cette fois, puis bah moi je vous dis rendez-vous pour l'épisode 5 ma foi. Allez, à tout à l'heure.